welcome back to Coffee Talk. This is our 10th Coffee Talk. Did you know that? 10 weeks that we've been doing this. This is pretty awesome. So we thank you guys for joining us, whether you're here with us right now live or you're watching later on demand. We thank you for joining us. And I'm going to give Father a chance to kind of fill you guys in on anything he wants you to know about what's going on with the parish. And then after that, we'll kind of get into our topic for today. We're going to check in with the rest of the staff a little bit later. You'll notice that Betty isn't here with us yet, but she's going to be jumping in a little bit. So we're going to give her the chance to, her and Lori and I, the chance to check in with you guys in just a little bit. So Father, I'm going to turn things over to you. What's new with you? What's new with the parish? Anything that you guys need us to know right now?
Well, I think the fact that things are opening up a little bit, that we're kind of feeling a little more comfortable with like the daily mass routine. And I think the people that are coming to daily mass are kind of understand the routine now, and it's not so bad. First day or two, it was kind of strange feeling. But I think we're kind of doing it okay, and Carlos is assisting me, and it's nice because we can keep everyone very safe between the two of us. We can, what one doesn't think of, the other one does, and so that's been nice working in tandem with that, and so it's not so bad. I don't know, do you feel that way too?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really cool. Like there's been times where one of us will get something and the other one will, well, we should think about this to just kind of ensure safety. So we're trying our best to keep everybody safe. I'm sanitizing after every mass. And every now the church is open from 12:30 to 3:30 every day, Monday through Friday, and we have I go in and sanitize after the morning mass, and then I go in afterwards after everyone has left at 3:30, and I sanitize them too, just to ensure that everyone's safe. We keep our grounds clean.
The other interesting thing that I really like, and I know some people will disagree with me, but having daily mass in the church brings back some of the daily popular piety. And so, we'll be able to kind of bring back some of the things that happened during the church year, and that in the chapels we were not able to do that. While it's nice to have the intimacy of the chapel, but the parish church also has its value. And I like to, on certain saints' days where I have special relics of those saints, I bring them out, set up a little devotional place. So it's nice to have the church have daily mass in the church. I like that.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So we're happy to hear that daily mass is going well. And so obviously, if you are interested in coming and joining us for mass on a daily basis, we are open up for that now. And we're still maintaining diocesan protocols and observing CDC guidelines. So we're keeping everybody safe. Like Carlos says, he's disinfecting everything. So we definitely want you to come if you feel like you're up to it. And then as far as weekend masses are going, Father, what has been your opinion? Because we're coming up, we're going to be celebrating our third week back in church. How do you feel like it's been going thus far? What are your thoughts about mass as we're kind of coming back open on Sundays?
Everyone who has come that has talked to me had all their fears assuaged by how well it was done, and that they anticipated maybe being a little more fearful. And the emails and texts that I've gotten have said, oh, that was easy, that was comfortable. So I think there's still people who, are still afraid to come. I know I talked to a couple yesterday. Well, I talked to the wife, and she said, we're still nervous. They're not that old. It's not like they're really old people, and they're people in their 50s, but they're saying, no, we're still a little nervous. So, I think the attendance has not been great, but I talked to another priest yesterday, and he said this very same thing. He, he's in a significantly bigger parish, and his numbers are not very impressive at all. So I think there's still a lot of people, and rightfully so. It's fine. You can't condemn people for being cautious, because that's been my song all along. I think I have spoken out very critically against people who have not reverenced knowledge from science. People who just took it very casually. So I think Sunday Mass, was very well in light of, all the circumstances. And what I like, this may seem insignificant to you, but when I look out or when I'm preaching, everyone is evenly spaced in the church. And it's so much nicer because I can see everyone as an individual now. I don't see you as clumps. Because actually the way people sit naturally is as clumps of people. So now everyone is evenly spaced, and I think that even enhances people's experience of the liturgy, because they're seated that way. So I like that a lot. I hope we can continue to do that.
Well, that's good. And I know that it's definitely, I just sharing, because I worked on our Mass Online experience, and I remember the first couple times that we did Mass when we were recording our Masses, it was hard for Father to look down the barrel of the camera. You're so inclined to want to make eye contact and connect with people, and it's good to be able to. It's good that you're able to do that again and connect with people while you're preaching and while you're celebrating the Mass. That's really cool. So we just encourage you, if you're ready, to come join us. You're more than welcome. We're keeping you safe. We're obviously going to keep offering Mass online on the weekend. There's no changes in the bishop offering or extending the dispensation from attending Mass in person. I'm just going to share from my own perspective. We really want to come back to Mass, but Gus has apprehensions about going back into church, and he even shared with me, not because he's afraid of getting sick, but he's really afraid. He's like, I don't know, Dad. I don't know if I can stay put long enough. So he doesn't want to be running around and causing a ruckus during Mass. He says, because it's like there's going to be less people. And I go, yeah, there's going to be less people, so you got to sit still, dude. So he's like, okay, maybe we'll try next week, because we were going to come last week. But he's like, okay, maybe we'll try next week. So we encourage you guys to come when you're ready, and you're going to be taken care of. So that's great. It's good to hear that, like our Masses are going well in person. So,
Adam, I would just, you were talking about reconnecting with people, which obviously is the most wonderful thing. But, and all humor aside, I now am very used to saying Mass to that camera's eye.
Yeah.
And now I don't see it as a camera's eye. I see it as the wonder of who might view the Mass. And, we can't always, we don't know who the people are. And I'm always thinking, I'm saying Mass for, I know 4 people specifically who are living in Florida and watch every week. And so that's, even though it's not connecting directly, but it's kind of fun to think that I'm reaching an audience of different people.
Mm.
So yeah. Oh, and I see Lorene and Marty Wisniewski there. Lorene,
Hey.
Marty, how are you?
Hey, I'm muted now.
Yes.
How you
We
doing?
miss you.
Miss you too.
And
Nice.
now we get to watch you because we can catch it at any time, which is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Started schedule, he didn't always get. Now we can.
Great. Good.
And
Hey,
I
you
just,
look great. Thanks.
I
And
just
we
wanted to
love-
share. I just wanted to share with you guys because Father talked about this audience that we've kind of amassed doing things online, things like this, and especially our mass. In the last 28 days, we've had over 2,000 views on our YouTube channel, which is pretty remarkable. You know, I mean, we're just the little engine that could, and that equates to almost 460 hours of video that have been watched just on our YouTube channel alone, which is really cool. And you're right, Father. I'm just looking at our analytics from our YouTube channel. We have people from all over the place who are watching online. So obviously a majority of our audience, a lot of our audience is in New York, but you're right. We have people from Florida. I've seen people from Illinois, Massachusetts, overseas. We have people who are watching actually in the UK, which is pretty cool. So people are, and that's pretty incredible that we have this reach of people that aren't just in the immediate New York area who are sharing in the mass with us. So that's actually a really cool thing that our little engine that could here in Lakeland and Solve is reaching out to people all over the place, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, I talked to a guy last night, and he lives in St. Louis, Missouri, and he has viewed he's viewed our mass.
Yeah. So it's just a really great opportunity for us to kind of reach out and evangelize in a way that we never probably thought we could have before. So my encouragement to you guys is if you have liked Mass online and you know somebody who's still staying at home, or maybe somebody who hasn't gone to Mass in a little bit and they're looking for something different, share it with them. Just hit that share button on our YouTube channel. You've already subscribed, so just hit that share button and send them an email, send them a text, let them know. Say, hey, I'll join you at 9 o'clock on Sunday. We can stay in our pajamas and we can go to Mass.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, we thank you guys for doing that and participating in that with us. And so today's topic, and something that I think that the Father and Lori and I talked about a little bit yesterday, and we wanted to try and have a conversation around today, is you may have seen a little bit of news in relationship to our diocese as of late, and some things that have come up in the news about the diocese filing for what's called Chapter 11 restructuring and reorganization. And I know that for many of us, because a lot of times the word bankruptcy gets tied to that term of Chapter 11. And what I wanted to do is give Father first the chance to kind of provide a little bit. You already spoke about it at Mass this weekend, Father. But I wanted to give us a chance to provide a little bit of clarity and transparency into what that means for the diocese, and then what that actually means for us as a parish. And then talk about how we feel about some of this stuff, because there are some really raw and sensitive topics that come along with this whole Chapter 11 restructuring. And I think it's really important for us as Christians, as people who believe in Jesus and who support the church that he founded, to navigate this process and navigate this time. So I'm going to turn things over to you so you can kind of give us a little bit of definition. Then we'll talk a little bit more as a community about how we kind of process this.
Yeah, you're right. The whole idea of bankruptcy is such a bad, negative concept. And it always makes me think of that wonderful interplay in the Neil Simon play, Brighton Beach Memoirs, where the young Jewish son comes into the kitchen and his mother is cooking dinner. And he says to her, "Mom, tell me about Uncle Mordecai." And she says, "Shh, don't say his name." And And the young man says, well, why, Mom? He was your brother. You loved your brother. And she says, shh, don't talk about him. And she does that, spitting and to try to kind of erase any thought of Uncle Mordecai. And finally, the son presses her more and more, and she whispers, and it's very effective in the theater because it's that theater whisper, and she says, he went bankrupt. And in other words, for a Jew to go bankrupt, like that's the worst thing that could ever happen. And of course, when she says that, it's so intense on the stage, but the audience, of course, laughs because it's just so funny. And I can't convey it to be funny, but it's really good. But it illustrates how, what a bad word bankruptcy is. And actually, it is bankruptcy, but not in the sense that someone loses everything or someone has, overspent, or it's not like that at all. In fact, there are various types of bankruptcy, and they're called chapters. And, chapter 7 is where someone literally like loses everything and has to start over. They have no resources whatsoever. Chapter 11, which was filed by the diocese, means that for a specific period of time, and we don't know at this point how long, that a bankruptcy judge will direct the operation of the diocesan corporation, meaning that the judge will determine how the corporation can operate normally and like not lose its mission. So it's not like when someone goes out of business because they went bankrupt, but it's so that they can continue and stay in operation. And staying in operation, they're directed by a judge so that any interaction with the corporation is not just determined by the corporation itself, but the court can intervene to make sure there's justice. So in the case of the diocese, the diocesan corporation, which means the immediate corporation that runs the diocese, which is separate from like the corporation that has the Hope Appeal money or the Heritage Campaign money or Catholic charities or Catholic schools. None of that is included in this. And I think that's the most important understanding. So it's not like they're going to take, like if you donate to Hope Appeal, it's not like the bankruptcy is going to take that money. Okay, that's not included. It's just the operating corporation of the Diocese of Syracuse, which is separate from those assets that run ministries. Okay, that's really important to understand. So
it's also important, Father, I think, that in something that people need to understand too, when we talk about this, when we talk about the corporate structure of the diocese, that we as a parish entity, all parishes are a separate corporate entity as far as a corporation is concerned from the diocese. So when we talk about this, especially when we start talking about the financial aspect of it, that like you said, when it comes to the causes or charities within the diocesan structure that you give to, like Hope Appeal, etc., Catholic schools, not only that, but the tithing that we provide for the parish is not something that falls under this Chapter 11 restructuring. That's correct?
That's correct. In
And
other
also,
words,
along with that, and
church
this is a good point to
is
remember
separate
for us, is
corporation.
yeah, and a good thing for us to remember too, as parishioners, as Catholics, is distinguishing these two entities. There is the diocese, which is a spiritual entity that provides for the spiritual well-being of the people, and then there's a corporate entity, which is how it manages the assets that it has, that are at its disposal. The court judge that will be overseeing this only has authorization over the financial aspects of how the diocese is run. It's not like he can now make decisions like Bishop Lucia or something like that, correct?
That's right.
Right. So when we talk about the court overseeing things in the diocese, they will have no influence on how we celebrate or worship in any regard. I just want to, because that's actually something that somebody asked us when they heard that, there's going to be a judge overseeing things. They were very worried about the interplay between the court and how the church actually functions, which is just, it's important things for us to talk about.
Actually, nothing is really going to change in the operation of the diocese. And as one priest kiddingly said, that's too bad, because there are a couple of things we'd like to change as to the way they run things. But so nothing is going to change. But what this does is, first of all, two very important things. By filing this Chapter 11 bankruptcy, we ensure that whatever payoffs are made by insurance, remember, the diocese has extensive insurance that will make the payments to the claimants. Okay, so the insurance companies don't really want to deal with the diocese at this point. And they're just they can just legally avoid the diocese, but they can't avoid the judge. So therefore, what'll happen is, say the first person who alleges that he or she was abused by a priest or a coach or a teacher. And remember, these are not just priests. These are lay people too. There are a few cases that involve coaches who are lay people and teachers in Catholic schools. So say that person wins his or her case. Well, they could be awarded, say, $3 million. So if the diocesan corporation only has, say, 10 million, they've taken almost 1/3 of all that the diocese has as assets to pay, or that the insurance has, to pay. So what happens is a bankruptcy judge will wait till all the cases have been tried, and those who are deserving of payments, then their payments will be determined by the bankruptcy judge so that everyone gets an equitable piece of the pie. Otherwise, if that were not the case, the first couple of people would get the whole pie, and then the rest would get nothing. And that's not really just. So by having the judge here controlling the insurance companies, you assure justice for all the claimants. So that's really important. So that whole justice thing. And then secondly, so that there's no change in the running of the diocesan corporation. So the two things, then that's why, the bishop didn't want to do it, obviously. But there was really no choice. And when he had a meeting with the priests, we all said that you can't do anything else because it wouldn't be right. Can you imagine if the first claimant, say, got, half of the insurance potential? That would be wrong.
Mhm.
And then also, you have to remember that these cases we're dealing with go from 1948 until 1970. There are no cases after 1970. So they're all old cases, very, very difficult to prove one way or another, since the major offenders are dead. So that's the other thing, that the major offenders are dead, and hard to either wage a prosecution or a defense after people die.
The other thing that's really important about this too, when we talk about, because I think initially, I've spoken to several people and they heard that they kind of feel like it's a matter of, like, when we do this restructuring, it's and we talk about how we're trying to ensure that victims are compensated as equitably as possible. Like, a lot of times people have, like, several people have shared with me that, like, that feels like a little bit of lip service, or like it sounds like we're trying to do some legal manipulation, but really in essence, not only is it making sure that they have a financial compensation, which if they were abused, they are entitled to, absolutely. But also, the problem with not doing this, like Father mentioned, if the first 2 or 3 cases are tried and then everything is exhausted, then there is no recourse for victims to be heard. There's no, so if there are, I don't know this number. I'm going to say 30. I'm going to say if there are 30 cases that need to be tried. If the first 3 are done, there's 27 other cases where nobody gets to hear, nobody's story is heard, nobody gets to find resolution, not just financially seeking restitution, but also seeking resolution in their own hearts, having their day in court to be heard. This is assuring that people have the ability to go through, because this, being able to, while it is, I cannot possibly imagine how painful it would be to go through the experience of all of this. It gives them the opportunity to go through this part of the process, to have their voices heard, to be able to share their testimony and find justice. And the thing that I constantly have to remind myself, and I think is helpful for all of us, is that God is a God of justice, and that this is part of God being just. And again, this is an important conversation for us to have as the church, Big C church. How do we budget these feelings that we have about all of this? Because while I'm going to speak from my own experience, I'm not going to put any words in your guys' mouth, but from my own experience, there is me, Adam, the Catholic. Like, I have accepted Jesus into my heart. I believe in the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, the universal, the word I used with Father yesterday, the cosmic entity of the church, that is the mystical body of Christ, all of us, right? Believing in Jesus, hoping in the resurrection and eternity in heaven with God. There's that. And then there is the earthly entity that is the church, that is filled with imperfect people who sin and can have the possibility to hurt others. How do I budget my feelings? Because when it comes to the earthly entity that has the ability to hurt people, I'm really angry, and I'm really frustrated, and I'm really hurt. And I'm not even one of these people who were hurt by the church, or hurt by priests, or hurt by coaches or teachers. But at the same time, I have my faithfulness and my loyalty to Jesus. So how do we budget all of this stuff? How do I not get burnt out on God in the church, when I'm frustrated with the church itself. I think that's a really important conversation for us to have as a faith community, because I think that there is a possibility, if we don't have open conversations about this and we don't share our hurt and our frustration, then for us as the church to get burnt out and to turn in different directions where we shouldn't be turning to try and deal with this.
Yeah, when I think of, there's a couple of the offenders, and every time I hear their names, they make my skin crawl. In fact, one of them was a resident in Loretto Geriatric. And so when I would be there, I'd have to walk past him. And the first couple of times, I saw him in the wheelchair in the hallway, and I rushed by and I never spoke. I never said hello or anything. And I heard him say my name, that I had walked by him. And I felt like I had sinned. That, just because I was so disgusted at the sight of him that I, wouldn't even acknowledge him as a human being. And I realized that was wrong. That you can't, even though he was disgusting to me, but to act like I did was wrong. It was just wrong. And but it was not easy to even start to pass by him and to, even just to say hello. There was no more that was required, but I had difficulty doing that. And then another time, several years ago, one of the other one who was most notorious, I saw him at an event, not a church event, and I left. I just left the event because I didn't want to even have to say hello to him. And that's how disgusting they are to me. That's not right. That's not right. That's not, it's just like if you're a parent and your kid does something very bad, you don't stop loving that your child. Obviously, it changes things. It changes the relationship, but you don't stop loving that person. And Jesus doesn't tell us to stop loving someone who does something, but rather to remember that God's rain and sun fall and shine on the bad and good alike. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the person who sits in judgment.
Matthew 5:43-45.
Would I want anyone I know to be interacting with that person? No. Would I let my kid get near that person? No. Would I impede a nurse taking care of that person at the hour of his death? No. You see, that you have to make proper distinctions.
Mm-hmm. And it's important too to remember when we talk about, there's two things that we need to remember when we talk about this kind of stuff. We need to focus on and remember what that term forgiveness means and what the word love means. When we talk about forgiveness, especially in this context, you gave a great example of hurt, and like a way that it was explained to me once is if you were injured, like I had back surgery about 10 years ago. And I have a scar that goes on my back from about my belt line up to just below the middle of my back. It's a decent sized scar. And I don't think about that scar all the time. But every once in a while, I'll just randomly, like, I'll reach back and I can, like right now, I can feel that scar. It's a memory of a hurt. But when we are healing, we don't necessarily forget about the injury, the thing that caused that trauma, because this was a trauma to me. It's not the same as a abuse or a trauma in that regard, but it's still a trauma. I haven't forgotten about the fact that I had back surgery. It's still there. It's in my memory, but I live my life, and every once in a while that memory comes back. I've healed, my body's physically healed, but there's a reminder. When we are forgiving people, when we talk about forgiveness, we don't know, nowhere in the Bible does it says that we have to just absolutely forget the transgression, but we are called to forgive. And the reason I brought this up is just in my time with like journeying with people through Alpha, a guy named Nicky Gumbel, who was the pioneer of Alpha, he talks about forgiveness. Not forgiving people is like giving somebody space in your head to live rent free. It's like you drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. And what we do when we forgive is we don't just put it aside and be like, oh, well, la-di-da, and carry on with our life like everything is normal. But we do manage to find the ability to move on. And when we are experiencing hurt, when we have the reminder, when we feel the scar, the ability to turn to a God who understands that and know that he understands that. And the second thing is, and Father talked about this really eloquently, is when we talk about loving somebody, you know, Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. When we talk about loving somebody, you don't have to have that person over and have a barbecue on the back deck with that person by loving them and forgiving them. When we talk about loving somebody, especially in the context of being Christians, is we perpetually hope in total forgiveness and eternity with God in heaven. I've talked with teens a bunch of times and I've asked them this question, and it's a controversial question. I said, is there a chance that somebody like Adolf Hitler is in heaven? Like, you could go to heaven today and you could be standing in front of God and Adolf Hitler could be standing next to you. And what do you think that the normal reaction 10 times out of 10 is? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Which is a righteous answer. That's an answer that is logical. But at the same time, we believe, if we believe what the Bible says, and we believe what God has taught us, that if that man, in all of his wickedness, the moments before his death, cried out to an infinitely compassionate God and truly repented of his sin and really let Jesus into his heart, not because he's trying to hedge his bet, because he's trying to escape eternal torture or something, but he really realized the error of his ways and cried out for forgiveness, that the God of infinite love and mercy forgave him of that. And there's a chance that at the last day that a man like Adolf Hitler could be in heaven. And if we don't believe that as Christians, then we don't actually believe anything about what Jesus said, because that is also part of God being just, is that his justice is open to everybody. Now, I'm going to speak from a logical perspective. Do I think that scenario actually played out in history? No. I don't believe that a man like that actually really repented truly of his sins, cried out to God, and accepted Jesus into his heart. I don't believe that actually happened. But in this scenario, we have to remember that when we talk about these people who we now have to confront, who wounded the body of Christ, the people of God, we have to understand that there's a possibility that they will be, that God, not that there's a possibility that God, that if they really want forgiveness of their sins, that God's going to forgive them. And when it says in Scripture, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, it doesn't mean never make a mistake. It doesn't mean walk around all day, oh, and like levitating on a cloud. It means forgiving perfectly the way that God forgives perfectly. And we're supposed to struggle with that. It's okay for us to struggle with that forgiveness. I know that was very rambly, but this is something that, like, Kate and I have been talking and praying over, and friends and I have been talking and praying over, and it's something for us to talk about and pray over. And I think it's really important for us to have a conversation in a forum like this and say how we feel. And if you're angry and you're hurt and you're disgusted, I think it's really important for you to say that publicly.
Mhm.
Because God is a God who can handle all of our mess. You know, like the most sincere prayer that some people can honestly pray is yelling at God and actually like cursing at him. And a lot of times people, I'll say that and people will be like, that you can't talk to God that way. I'm like, you don't think God can handle that? You don't think that when Jesus was walking to Calvary, that people, it says that they spit on him and they punched him and they cursed him and they uttered every possible thing against him that they could. You don't think God can handle it when you're angry and you're frustrated and you're hurt, that you can't swear at him? God can handle your bad language. God can handle your anger and your frustration. He doesn't, it's not that he doesn't care. He wants all of that. So that's why I think it was important for us to talk about this and give you guys a forum, give us all a forum to discuss this. So whether it's asking questions, whether it's saying how you feel, I think it's really important for us to say this stuff. So that being said, it's time for Father, myself, Lori, to turn the microphone around and give it to you. What do you think about all of this? I want to give you guys the opportunity to talk and share. I promise that Father has said that none of this is going to go on your permanent record. He's not going to report you to Bishop Lucia for anything that you say in a forum like this, but this is really important for us to have honest conversations. So what do you guys think? How do you feel? I'm not going to police you. You guys have the mute button down in the corner. I'm going to let you unmute yourself and chime in with whatever you want, because I think it's important for us to talk.
Well, I'll say a couple things, I guess. I think it's the absolute correct decision by the bishop. I happened to listen to his recording, and I think absolutely doing the right thing. I have a different perspective probably than many on the call. I was a student at Bishop Ludden High School, and a number of the priests on the list taught there while I was there. And as I look back on my time there, it's interesting because very naive going through it at the time, not really realizing it, but in retrospect and I'm not judging, because Father, I am, I think if you probably knew some of the stunts I pulled over the years, you'd probably think very differently of me. So, I'll just say that right now, full disclosure here. Okay. But I'm far from perfect. But I think it's, you recognize how young men could be vulnerable, young people could be vulnerable, and that's an interesting perspective. And I think it's unfortunate that had to happen. But again, I don't sit in judgment of anyone, whether it occurred or didn't occur. And I don't know whether these men are did or did not do it. But I just think it's an interesting perspective as I look back on some of the conversations I had in high school with priests. I wonder often if it changed my thought process on certain paths I chose in my life. I seriously think about that, believe it or not. I've thought of that often over the years as this has come to light. Just a very interesting perspective. I also had young boys who were active in the church and at St. Cecilia's. And I will tell you that we were, as parents, extremely vigilant as our young men were going through things, not in a malicious sort of way, but just as any parent would be, with my exposure to certain things. So I think the bishop's doing the absolute right thing. I hope that justice does come to those who deserve it. I certainly don't believe that everyone may have a legitimate claim. I'm not here to say they do or they do not, but I hope that for those who are entitled, that they do receive justice and whatever is fair and equitable. So it's a difficult topic for the church today. And again, my perspective is probably somewhat different than many, but it's just it's something that needs to happen. And I think he did the absolute right thing, given everything else we're going through. I question some of the decisions that have been made, but I don't question that one. So I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate you sharing all that, you know. So what about you guys? Like, what about anyone else? And this is, again, the whole objective of us doing these coffee talks is, yeah, we like to learn. We like to be able to expand, you know, Romans says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. But this is also a conversation. It's a chance for us to talk. So what else, what other thoughts do you guys have that you'd like to share?
I think that the one thing that both Adam and Father said, I think that's important, and that word probably won't get out there. But whenever you mention bankruptcy, it's Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. There's always, nobody ever puts that word in there, okay? But it is a protection. And the other thing is, I think that the perception of nobody here, but people from the outside looking in are thinking that this bankruptcy was done to try to not give people justice, okay? I think it was just a legal maneuver, and I think that that's unfortunate that a lot of people from the outside looking in will think of it that way.
Yep. You know, Walt, the bishop did say, you know, I'm a father who has to protect my family. And, you know, that certainly is part of it too, that while victims certainly deserve justice, but is closing down the church, is that part of justice? You know, in other words, to close down the church stops the ministries of the church. And, you know, so that, I mean, that's a feature. So the bishop did say, you know, I'm a father who is supposed to protect the church, but protection doesn't mean, of course, not being transparent and honest, or cover-ups or that kind of thing. I think that's, you know, people have this idea that, you know, the Catholic Church is the, you know, wealthiest institution on earth, and that there's all sorts of, you know, buckets of money all over the place. And I think what we're finding is that that's not quite true, as we, you know, might have thought. And of course, you know, people always exaggerate things to kind of express their feelings about things. So you're right. There are going to be some people who are going to say, they did this so that they can protect themselves. I'm sure people are going to say that.
I just want to clarify my point too, to make sure it's not misunderstood. The part of the reason I agree with the bishop is that he does need to protect the diocese to continue its ministry. I mean, if that went away, that would be the worst outcome of all this, you know, due to all this. So, I mean, you're right, Walt. That's a great point that they bring that up. It does, and I totally. That's why I, you know, 100% agree with the decision. You have to protect your interests going forward. Just and equally provide justice to those who deserve it. So it's a delicate balance, but you have to make sure the ministries can continue. That's just, in our community, especially in this area, we need it more than ever. Just want to make that point clear.
Yeah.
Carm, I think you had something you wanted to add.
Well, I just wanted to say that growing up in Oswego, when I was younger, there was a certain priest that it was always joked about how he had a camp out on Lake Ontario and all the altar servers would go out there and that. And it proved later on that he was one of the priests. And I just think that when all this gossip was going around Oswego about this priest, if something had been done, if somebody had investigated back then, instead of ignoring it, and maybe some of this would have been, you know, in other words, the kids needed to be believed. And I know some of the parents just couldn't believe that a priest would be guilty of that. And like I said, it was common knowledge all through Oswego, and yet nothing was ever done about it until after his death.
That's absolutely right. When my first assignment was in Fulton in Oswego County, and I was 26 years old. I was a newly ordained priest, and I was to deliver papers to that rectory. And my pastor, who was about 70 at the time, says to me, "Now, when you go there, I don't want you to go in." He said, "Stay outside, just give them the papers."
Yeah.
And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Just do what I say." And, later, he told me why. You're right. There was absolute
Yeah.
knowledge and, obviously no proof, because the victims did not ever come to light until much later. But everyone suspected. There wasn't a person alive that didn't suspect that bad things were going on there.
Yeah.
And he proved to be the most notorious of all the perpetrators.
I know it was really bad. And the sad part about it was later on in life, he was made a Monsignor, and which was taken away from him after his death. And it was proven to be true. But it was just so sad that these young victims could have been helped at a lot sooner than what's happening right now.
Yeah.
That's the
Carm,
hardest part.
you're 100% right about that. And I think that one of those things that we can look back on now and understand and know that we can't go forward like this is it falls in these two buckets. There's the first bucket, which was understanding this idea of child sex abuse was so foreign at the time, and the culture was, don't say that, like, we don't talk about that, and it was almost like, it wasn't like people, well, I guess it was people being shamed into not saying things, and being told to stay quiet. And then it also falls into the bucket of clericalism, which is, we had developed this culture where the men that we entrusted to leadership should never be questioned and should never, and they could do no wrong. And so you would never dare to say something like that. And it wasn't just, the father even said this the other day, that it was in the culture at the time. It wasn't just, you don't say that about your priest. You don't say that about your doctor. You don't say that about the town lawyer. You don't say that about the dentist. That when we put people in positions of leadership and entrust them with assisting and aiding others, then all of a sudden we can't say something. We can't possibly say that, because you would never want to besmirch somebody in a position like that. And I think that it's really important for us to remember that you're absolutely right, Carm, that we need to hear victims when they speak up, and we need to look into it, and we need to investigate and get people the help that they need immediately. Not just from especially in the context of this, like legal proceedings and lawsuits and financial restitution, but also providing services to help deal with the trauma and addressing it immediately. So I think that dealing with that going forward is going to be really important. Lori, I know you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I've had a few conversations with people since the news broke on Friday, and similar to what Father had said, a lot of people are viewing it as a big cover-up, which is, totally the opposite. They're being transparent about it. The bishop, I'm sure, as we've discussed, this has been very difficult for him. But, as a parent myself, it's a struggle. My role, I've been both mother and father, and you always want what's best for your children. You want to protect your children. And I've always told my children, what's very important is communication. Keep the line of communication open, and that makes for a stronger bond. It makes you grow your relationships. And I applaud the bishop. I know he's been put in a very difficult position, and he's been honest and upfront. Also, Father Clemente, he's always kept a line of communication open for him and his parish family or his children. So, you know, when I talk to people and they say this is a big cover up, and, you know, we just have to get the message across. Now is the time to support your Catholic faith. Now is the time to support your parish, support the bishop. Don't turn your back right now. Keep the prayers coming, stay faithful, and be supportive. And that's going to help us get through this period of time. It's not a time to turn your back and walk away. It's a time to step up and be very supportive.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's a good point. Walt, you had something you wanted to add too.
Yeah, I did. Well, Lori kind of said a little bit of it, but I just want, you know, as the bishop is supposed to protect his flock, and this goes more to the COVID, but Father, I can't thank you enough for what you've done to keep us and your family safe. I think that everyone in the parish who's involved in doing that has done a tremendous job, and I just want to thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Thanks for having that.
My honor to serve you.
Well, I know that this is a big conversation, and I know that that conversation doesn't end here. So my encouragement to you is, like Lori said, keep the lines of communication open, stay active in supporting the parish and the diocese, but have conversations, seek understanding, try and find peace in this, because there is some turbulence that's going to come along with this, but just seeking out that peace that Jesus provides us. So as we kind of start landing the plane, I wanted to give us a chance. I know Betty wasn't able to join us today, which is a bummer. I think that maybe she was having a connection issue. Maybe she had to reorganize the beer steins in the basement. 'Cause I know that's where she is a lot of the time. But I wanted to give us a quick chance to just kind of check in with you. First, Lori, I'm going to give you a chance. Is there anything that you wanted to, because you're the backbone, so let us know what's going on.
Well, just basically, again, the weekend masses, we've had, as I said last week, a wonderful group of people who have been assisting with us. Going into this, we kind of had a goal, and the feedback I've been getting from people when they come in, they said it's been a very welcoming atmosphere. It's been a very safe atmosphere, and I feel very comfortable coming. And that was exactly our goal. Again, it's the people that have been helping us, from the registration to the ushers. We have a great group. We've tweaked a few things along the way, but it's really worked out well. And like Father has said, it's really nice to look at the church, to see everybody evenly spaced out, to make the church look full. It's been such a tremendous feeling. I also attend morning mass. And the first week, everybody came in and you could tell they were timid. Nobody wanted to speak to anybody. But as the time's going on, you know, it's okay to say good morning. It's okay to tell everyone to have a good day. There's more conversation, safe social distancing before and after Mass. And it's just nice to see all those faces every morning coming back to Mass. Just real quick, Carlos had to get over to the cathedral, but St. Cecilia's Church is now open from 12:30 to 3:30 every day, so people can come in for private prayer. Carlos is over there, you know, monitoring and sanitizing in between, so we're very happy that we're able to give people that opportunity to come in. And the parish office still remains closed to visitors. We're in the process right now of making some modifications, because when we do open it up to visitors again, we want to make sure again it's safe, that they're protected, we're protected. But in the meantime, you know, we're here by phone, by email, by appointment. So we're just doing everything we can to keep things going. But again, to make things safe. And as Walt said, you know, Father Clemente's done a tremendous job during this whole time. We can't be more thankful for his support and his leadership. And it's just
Awesome. All right. Well, that kind of, I don't know what happened with Lori. I think she froze up there for a second, but that kind of puts us at the end of our time today. I know, Father, you said that you guys are heading down to the cathedral for Mass
Yep.
today. And we thank you for praying for us as you guys gather together. It's the Chrism Mass, right? We're doing like a makeup Chrism Mass because we didn't get to do it during
Yes.
during the Holy Week, right?
It will only be the priests.
Mhm.
It's
Whatever.
so it's a private chrism mass.
Cool. Is that going to be live streamed? Do you know if they're going to live stream it on their YouTube channel?
I don't know that. I would assume
Okay.
it would make sense that they would.
Well, if you guys are interested, you guys can check in. I think is it at noon today?
At noon.
Yeah, so it's at
Yeah.
noon. The Diocese has a different YouTube from us, but if you go to YouTube and just look Diocese of Syracuse, it's the very first result. And if they're live streaming it, that's where it's going to be. So you may, if you want to try and check that out, because we obviously it's just going to be the priests of the diocese and obviously seminarians. So be there. 2 quick prayer intentions for you guys to pray for this coming week. As you know, over the weekend, we had 3 men ordained to the transitional diaconate, including our guest from our last coffee talk, the deacon, Dennis Walker. He was recently ordained to the diaconate, so please pray for him, for Brendan Foley and John Ledore, who are our 3 diocesan transitional deacons who are going to be preparing this next year to become priests. So please pray for them. We also have 2 men along with that who are transitional deacons who will be getting ordained to the priesthood soon. Pray for them. So I actually have 3 prayer intentions for you. The second one is Father and I are going to be meeting in the next, Father and Lori and I and Betty are going to be meeting as a staff in the next week or so to plan for our liturgy for our RCIA. So we have 3 people who are going to be coming into the church who we weren't able to receive their sacraments because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but because we're able to open up now, we're going to try and offer that Mass for our RCIA as soon as possible. So please pray for them. And last but not least, in a really important way, say some prayers for Lori, because yesterday was Lori's birthday. She turned 37, and we're really thankful that she is here with us, and we're thankful for another year with Lori. So please continue to keep wishing her happy birthday and show her some love. But we thank you guys for joining us this week on Coffee Talk, and we will see you guys next. Oh, Lori, do you have something? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I just checked online, and the Mass from the Cathedral is being live streamed on their YouTube channel starting at noon today.
There you go. So if you're interested in attending Chrism Mass, go for it online through the YouTube channel. But we thank you guys for being here. We thank you for being in conversation with us, and we will see you at Mass this weekend and next week on Coffee Talk. Have a great week, everybody.
God bless you.
Have a good one.